Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft Blog live stream. Rob Staton, Robbie Williams with you here, and we're looking ahead to the San Francisco 49ers game this week. We're talking about general Seahawks issues. We'll dip into the fact that Richard Sherman maybe he was joining the Seahawks for a little moment, then he wasn't, then he was getting on a plane to Tampa Bay, then the Seahawks were supposedly bringing him up, trying to get him off the plane to Tampa Bay, but he is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and the Seahawks still do not really have any answers. At cornerback, we'll run through some of the issues they are facing right now. And you will not be surprised, Robbie, that I want to talk a bit about Jamal Adams today. I want to talk a little bit about Jamal Adams. But, first of all, I just want to get straight into the game. I know that we usually wait for predictions and stuff like that until the end. I want to get straight into the game and give you my thought on what is going to happen this weekend. I am expecting a Seahawks loss. I know it's shocking. I'm expecting the Seahawks to lose in Santa Clara against the San Francisco 49ers. But I think it's going to be the worst kind of loss, Robbie. I think it's going to be a close loss. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think they're going to be improved in this game. And they're not going to play as poorly as they have in the last 2 weeks. But ultimately, it's still going to be a loss. It'll still be 1-3. They always play the 49ers close. They always have done under Shanahan. They did do when the Niners got to the Super Bowl. The Seahawks played the Niners close. They beat them in Santa Clara. And despite having essentially 7 uninjured players in the last game of the season, they were, an inch away from winning that final game as well and beating the Niners twice that year. So they always play them close. I think they'll play them close again this weekend. But I think they're still going to lose. And then what will happen is the message afterwards will be that the Seahawks have turned a corner, that they're making progress, that they'll be heading in the right direction, so everything's okay. And it'll be a false dawn. So in many ways, getting blown out and the warts being exposed again, to me, is more preferable than a false dawn against the Niners, whereby everybody comforts themselves with a loss against the most irritating team in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the same page with you. I have a feeling that it's going to be one of those games where we're going to lose, and I've gone back and forth on this. I feel like part of me thinks that we'll come out, we'll play really good in the first half, and then we'll figure out our second half issues and score more points in that second half, and we've dialed it in, and it'll be more of kind of a blowout. Because I just don't think the Niners are honestly that good of a team either. I at first I predicted they were going to be the best team in the NFC West, but looking at them, man, they look like they're struggling. They scare me on the wide receiver side of things. I'm worried about, our cornerbacks being able to stop Deebo Samuel and these guys. And I just don't feel comfortable stopping George Kittle or anything like that. And, it's always close with the Niners. This is one of the teams that, they know us well, we know them well, and Shanahan seems to have our number. And so it's one of those things I'm not super confident in this game at all. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I hate to predict the Seahawks loss, but I'm on the same page. I feel like it's going to be one of those things. I think it'll be close as well, and I think we'll probably play improved. But I look at the teams that the Niners have played, and apart from the Packers, I'm not really that impressed with their win. Against the Lions, I'm not super impressed with that win. I mean, the Lions don't. The Lions came back in that first week too and almost pulled it off. And, the Eagles are clearly not a very good football team either. So, I mean, their 2 wins haven't been super impressive. So I want to say the Seahawks are a better football team, but at this point I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the idea of saying
they're not a better football. I mean, they're not a better football team, but they have a better quarterback.
Quarterback, exactly.
Yeah. They have a better quarterback. And what I always see this game going is the Niners are very capable of, quick drives and long drives. And I think we'll see some of that, those agonizing Shanahan type drives where it's a screen pass. You can sort of see the screen developing as it's unfolding and the Seahawks are slow to it and it'll get to George Kittle or somebody and they'll rumble along for 11, 12 yards. Those slants where, Garoppolo drops back, he's thrown it before anybody's even reacted. And somehow this happens every time the Seahawks play the Shanahan Niners. Someone is on a sort of slant, inside slant, is wide open. It's an easy throw for 10 yards. It'll probably happen on 3rd and 10 and they'll get 12. And it just happens again and again and again. And they'll, I suspect the Seahawks will probably do quite a good job managing the running game because they again, from what memory, they tend to do that well against the Shanahan Niners. But it is those sort of longer drives. Now, the thing that the Seahawks have got in their favor is Jimmy Garoppolo is prone to being an absolute numbnuts and making some real mistakes. And just as you think that the Niners are rolling, a little bit of pressure and he throws an interception, I think there'll probably be some of that as well, Robbie. And I think the defense will have long, frustrating, difficult to watch drives where the Niners score. And there will also be those moments of, they've done something, the Seahawks have turned the ball over, or, the Niners have stalled, and that will keep the Seahawks in it. And I do think the Seahawks will have, I suspect they'll probably come out as they have done in the last few games and start somewhat successfully on offense. I just don't have the conviction within me to think that they're going to go to San Francisco and win. Now, don't get me wrong. There's no more game I'd rather win than this one. And the reason for that is that generally I find 49ers fans to be quite irritating. And, when I see the Seahawks play San Francisco, and I think it was the first game that was in that Santa Clara Stadium in 2014, and the Niners fans or the team had brought down that huge banner that said "Beat the Seahawks," that like the big thing that covered the entire stand. And then the Seahawks absolutely hammered them, and Richard Sherman got 2 interceptions. That was really hilarious. And then there's like other moments as well, like their reaction to the NFC Championship game, the fact that just as they thought they were set to dominate the NFC West, there was like the LOB happened, and Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson. Yeah, it's just the fact that it feels like 10 games in a row against the Niners. There's some very satisfying moments watching the Niners collapse over the years. So it'd be very great to see the Seahawks win this game. Nothing will give me more pleasure than doing the instant reaction with you, and the Seahawks have got to win. I still think either way, the Seahawks have some issues. We're going to talk about that, Robbie, that go beyond whatever happens in this game, really. I think there are major flaws that are going to prevent them from doing anything this year. I think it's going to be quite hard for them to get rid of the issues that we saw against Minnesota and Tennessee in the time frame they've got before this Niners game. But we'll discuss that a little bit more. I mean, let's get on to that.
The only thing I can really, to step back real fast, the only thing I can think of that might be positive going this is we know it's a must-win game, so we might come out and just throw everything we got at them. But according to Pete, we threw everything we had at the Vikings as well, and it didn't work. But I think with it being, everyone knows this is a must-win game. Even and the players know this is a must-win game. This is one that we have to win. If we lose this, we're in some serious trouble. But that's the only positive I can think of, is why a reason why I think we could come out and maybe dominate the game as well. But I think you're
dominate.
Realistic. Yeah,
I don't see a dominant performance.
No, let me back on. I'm actually predicting a loss as well, but I'm saying if we do win, I think it will be in probably dominating fashion, because they'll come out and want that. But time.
I think if they win, I think if they're going to win, I think it'll be Justin Myers field goal as time expires type thing in a heart attack style game, a la 2019. That's kind of what I see as a win, but then that's fine. I'll take that win.
I'll take any win. Yeah, I'll take any win.
The Seahawks dominating anybody this year seems like a bit of a stretch. I just don't see it. I think the Indianapolis games were as close to a domination as you are going to get. And look, I think that what you have to pin to is you have to hope that the Seahawks are so desperate that essentially it will come together, and enough at least to win this one individual game. And Russell Wilson never losing 3 games in a row, stuff like that. You have to hope there's something in that. But I think that maybe some of these issues that they have, Robbie, are very serious issues, and it's just impossible to fix them at this stage in a season. These are long-rooted, issues that date back years. So let's talk about it. Defensively, I think we'll start there. Now, I have heard so many times this week, Robbie, as people have clutched at straws to try and find like a positive feeling about where this season can go. I've heard so many times, and it has really, really pissed me off hearing it this week, as often as I have. Well, the Seahawks defense started off badly last year, and look where they ended up. Why can't that happen again? Right. The Seahawks defense improved last year for the following list of reasons: a Kyler Murray shoulder injury, an injured and hopeless Carson Wentz, Colt McCoy, the winless Jets, Dwayne Haskins, and CJ Beathard. That is why the Seahawks defense improved at the end of last season. The only good performance was against the Rams in week 16. And boy, did they put that right in the wild card round in the playoffs when they lost to a thumbless Jared Goff in his second to last game with the Rams before they shooed him off to Detroit. Now, people can hope and pray that there's going to be some major defensive turnaround, Robbie. We spoke about it all the way through the last season. The reason the Seahawks defense improved is because they were playing a bunch of crappy opponents. That's why. And they didn't play anybody difficult apart from the Rams. And once they played the Rams twice, the Rams hammered them into oblivion and ended their season. And we've already seen what this defense is doing now. And there are easier games at the latter end of the schedule. And maybe when it comes to playing, I don't know, Washington, Detroit, Team Jacksonville, there'll be a turnaround again. But I suspect that what we're seeing is the reality here of a team that is just not good enough defensively. Defensively, to put it frankly, they are pants, as we say over here. And pants over here are different to your pants. Pants over here is underwear. It's a poorly schemed defense. Players are not being developed. Players are not being used in ways for them to impact games. The pass rush isn't good enough. The cornerbacks certainly aren't good enough. They've wasted money and picks on this unit. It is rubbish.
Yeah, I mean, starting with the defense, I mean, you just look at, I'm sure we'll get onto the Sherman thing later on, but just how they handled this whole situation, how like they're begging him to get off the plane or whatever. I mean, if these rumors are true, man, like this is frustrating. Like you had multiple times to go get him. This defense isn't, the corners. I mean, why would you ship off Witherspoon for a fifth if you knew you needed help? Were you that confident in Trey Flowers? I mean, we saw all preseason that he wasn't good. So I was shocked when I didn't even think Trey Flowers was going to make the team. And the fact that he did, and now he's still starting, it blows my mind. And you had a chance to get Sherman. You cut Pierre Dizier or whatever, and he had played prior and like had some experience. Keep some of these guys who have some experience, and instead of relying on someone who is not going to be any good, that he's just been proven time and time again. He's just not the corner you need. And this is where I think Pete and John kind of get over their heads, where they think they overthink situations and get into a scenario where they think they're good enough to coach these guys up. I mean, and you just heard Pete last week say he didn't know how to use Jamal Adams. I mean, all these things are just frustrating. You're right. The defense isn't good enough. We're in some serious trouble right now as Seahawks fans, and it's going to take a major blow up of the defense to fix this. Maybe a couple pieces here and there that can help, but I mean, I think we're a long ways away from being Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, I want to. I mean, you said there were rumors on Sherman, but I mean, in fairness, and people were again. The Seahawks fans like to do this. If someone reports something, it's let's find a way to discredit it. Now, I think that this. So this is the. This is one of the tweets, Robbie. Dov. I don't know. We don't have this name over here. Dov Kleiman. I mean, he's got 60,000 Twitter followers. He seems to be somewhat reliable. A dispenser of news. He doesn't seem to me to be the type of person to just start claiming something and it be erroneous. And he was saying essentially that he was the one who reported. This wasn't a rumor. He reported that the Seahawks called Sherman as he was getting on the plane, or he was just attempting to get on the plane, and said, we want to sign you. And it was his report. Now, nobody has disputed this. People have said that since this came out, that Carroll was asked about it and said, we were touching base with him early in the process, and Sherman has said something similar. And they used that to sort of discredit the Kleiman report. However, when you actually... No one has actually turned around and gone, this guy's wrong. This is not true. No one said this isn't true. People have just offered that. And it may not have been that Carroll was speaking to Sherman. It could have been John Schneider. And, so Michael Sean Dugar tweeted the following, to which Dove, whatever, Kleiman said basically this: they told him all along they are good at quarterback. Then when he's about to go to his first visit, they tried to stop him from going on the plane. That is a shambolic situation. I mean, first of all, that they were telling Sherman that they are good at cornerback. Well, you are not good at cornerback, are you? You are not good enough at cornerback. We've seen that, haven't we? And having told him that and convinced themselves of that, they're now saying, please come and save us, Richard Sherman. Adam is here as well. Let's bring Adam in and make it a three-way. And Adam is here. And we were just talking about Richard. I don't know if you heard all of that, Adam. We were talking about Richard Sherman, but we'll give you a chance to settle in. Robbie, what do you make of all this? Because, again, no one is disputing this. People are saying different things about the Sherman thing, but no one is disputing that they tried to stop him going to Tampa Bay at the last minute.
I just don't know.
Saying that you are okay 1 minute and then saying, please come save us, looks like a shambles.
Yeah, I don't know why you waited until week 3 and that he was going somewhere else to be like, oh, now come get us. Or come to our team. Like, it's embarrassing. I feel like they're doing the same thing, with Geno Atkins. I feel like he'd be a benefit to our team, and they're waiting for him to I don't know if that's someone's doing something crunchy, some sort of paper thing, or can anybody hear that? Or is that just me? Anyways, I'll move on.
I thought you were eating.
No, it's not me. So yeah, I'm just frustrated that they even took this long to get about it, and knowing all along that Flowers is not the guy. Like, we've seen it time and time again. I don't understand Sherman. I've seen a lot of people say, well, he's older now and he was injured. Well, whatever. Half of Sherman is better than Trey Flowers. I mean, at least he'll give you a little bit of time, and people at least respect his skill set and the way he plays. I mean, they attack Trey Flowers like nothing. Like it's like almost a gimme every time. So the way they've handled the whole cornerback situation has been, it's mind-boggling, to be honest. I'm just, it's complete shambles. Like you said, it's a mess.
Adam?
Firstly, hands up. I had an empty straw wrapper that I was just fiddling with, and clearly my microphone's much stronger than I thought it was. So I apologize to the masses for a terrible start.
Fiddling.
I know. I apologize. Look, I was saying on my show earlier today with Stuart, if Pete Carroll gets up in the middle of the night and goes to the bathroom, he'll forget more about the NFL than I'll ever know in my entire life. And yet we all sat here March, April, May, June, July, thinking the cornerback room is a mess. Surely they're going to do something. And they did nothing. If anything, they doubled down on something they've never done, which is small cornerbacks. And, it's annoying that we find ourselves in this position because it's all been so predictable. And to be sliced and diced up by Kirk Cousins, who, is a fine quarterback, but to have to show him such respect that you're so terrified about what you've got as a deep threat that you just can basically give up everything underneath and only give yourself 3 drives in the second half because, you just don't know what to do. It just feels like a dereliction of duty to me.
Agreed. And doesn't it really frustrate you, though? I mean, how many other teams are doing this? I mean, you watch every other team in the league. How many are just going, we don't trust our cornerbacks. We're so desperate not to get beaten over the top that we're going to be so deep, so off the receivers. We're going to leave everything open underneath. And if our pass rush doesn't get home, we are screwed. You are just going to be able to throw underneath for 7, throw underneath for 6, throw for 10, throw for 15. You're just going to have something on offer. And if a quarterback is willing to be patient, he can march a team up and down the field. No other team is doing this. Even the bad teams do a better job than the Seahawks at this. What is so wrong with just going, do you know what? We can't play like this anymore. If Trey Flowers or Sidney Jones, put Sidney Jones in if Trey Flowers can't do this. If Sidney Jones and DJ Reed are maybe going to give a play up deep and it's 60 yards and heck, they give up a post or they give up a deep route or go route or something like that, we're going to have to live with that because we simply cannot deal with what's happening right now. We have to be more aggressive. And I want to see this team be more aggressive. I want us to go to opponents and say, we're going to challenge you. Beat us. I want to see Kirk Cousins be challenged to get that ball downfield and drop it into a bucket in behind DJ Reed or Sidney Jones rather than Trey Flowers. Make the quarterback do that. Don't say to Kirk Cousins, we're coming after you. But hey, if you just get enough protection, all you have to do is that, and you can just get it to Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen or whoever's playing tight end for the Vikings right now. They lost Rudolph. Their number one tight end's injured, and they still had a guy running free across the middle that they could throw to in this game. It's not good enough. I don't know why they're going with this plan. It's embarrassing. It's shameful, frankly, that they've decided that this is the best way to operate. it's playing scared. It's cowardly. It's a cowardly brand of defensive football.
Yeah, even with the game on the line. I mean, you think about it, when we were with the Titans, all they needed was a 3rd and 9, and we needed a stop, right? And they like literally ran a 9-10 yard, button hook and was wide open because our guys were playing so, 10-15 yards off the line. And as soon as the ball snapped, they dropped back even further. I mean, it didn't make any sense. And even at that point, you should press their wide receiver, get in their face, and let this beefed up defensive line get after them. Right? If this is the defensive line that you say is better, let them get a chance to get after that quarterback. Instead, it was way too fast, way too easy, and then the game was over. I may have lost it.
Yeah, man, there's not too much more than I can add to that beyond what we've already said. I mean, that game on Sunday really has, it feels like it's almost a seminal moment, and people have taken that game, and it's one of those that I think when we look back at the end of the season, remember that Vikings game might be the one that is seen as a turning point for a lot of people, whereby, I don't know about what you guys have seen on Twitter and message groups and Facebook groups, the swell of the fan base seems to be migrating towards a position where people aren't happy for the first time en masse. And there's always been a lot of defenders and people, rightly in a way, supporting what they do because there's been enough evidence to suggest that they know what they're doing. Sunday felt like a bit of a fork in the road for me in looking at how fans are viewing the state of the franchise at the moment. And it's a shame.
I think that's a good observation. I think the tide has turned. I think you were seeing, and every tweet that comes out, and there's always a bit of this because it's Twitter, fire Ken Norton Jr., fire Pete Carroll every time the Seahawks tweet something like, a piece of art has emerged in Seattle based around Tyler Lockett's poetry. And that was one of their tweets earlier today. And I'm thinking, now's not the time, fellas. You know what's going to come. People are not going to accept a painting based on Tyler Lockett's poetry right now. They are not in the mood for that. And lo and behold, everyone's fire Carroll, Ken, fire Ken, and that's the polite ones that I'm reading out right now. So, the fan base is turning a little bit. Even last year, when we were talking about some of the deficiencies with the team, there was always quite an aggressive pushback and a defense of Carroll. Often said that the Seahawks were a bit of a sacred cow for a lot of people. And I think that has turned. People are starting to get a bit fed up. And it's amazing actually this week to see the journalists, and even the journalists who don't cover the Mariners, but have kind of got swept up in this euphoria around the Mariners. All of the attention has gone to that. I can't remember a time I followed the Seahawks since 2006. That was the first time I went to a game. I don't remember a time when the majority of journalists who I follow for football were tweeting about the Mariners that Rob says it's a never-ending Mariners. And this is the first time they've been in an exciting playoff contention for a long time. But I've never seen this before. The Seahawks have been shunted off to one side and have been usurped by the Mariners. Now, I get it. The Mariners only play in front of half-empty stadiums, if that, during the week. At the weekend, it's going to be full. But even so, this is a team that plays every day. If the Mariners were just playing on Sunday and that was it, I bet anything that, whatever it's called, T-Mobile Stadium now, that'd be full. And there's just a real shift in that city. And the Seahawks are taking the back seat for the first time in a long time. And there's only one way to turn that around. I think there's apathy setting in. I think fans are losing interest. I think there's more people feeling like I said I was feeling on Sunday when I spoke to you guys than are feeling pumped and jacked, as Pete might say. I'm not particularly looking forward to this game on Sunday because losing to the Niners is a pretty horrible feeling. And I fear that's going to be the case. You've missed our predictions, by the way, Adam. We got them out of the way. We'll save yours for later. I want to talk about...
It won't be worth it, I don't think, if people are looking for optimism.
No. Let's talk a bit about the D-line. I'm not trying to sound like a smart ass here. I'm no doubt get accused of that. But we did talk about this, and I've written about this, that I wasn't as excited about the D-line. I thought the comparisons to 2013 were ludicrous. And I mean that in terms of depth. I know that people were never necessarily saying that Bennett and Averill were on a par with some of the guys that are here now. I didn't think the depth was that good either. I think there was a lot of hopeful, over-egging of the pudding going on. But this is the reality of the situation so far. Dunlap, anonymous, hasn't done anything. Kerry Hyder looks every bit a $1.5 million journeyman. Mayowa, my notes here, I've got Benson Mayowa is Benson Mayowa. And that kind of says enough. Interior, Al Woods is playing well, isn't he? He's doing well. But there's nobody on the interior that is a scary interior rusher. There's nobody that a team's thinking, oh, we've got to play them this week. And you get little fits and starts, don't you, from Darrell Taylor and Alton Robinson. But again, are any Niners fans this week thinking, oh, bloody hell, we're playing Darrell Taylor and Alton Robinson this weekend? There's just not enough up front. And if you are going to play the kind of coverages the Seahawks are playing, which is cowardly, you need to be better than this up front. You need to be aggressive. You need to be winning your battles. You need to be creating pressure. And they just haven't. The last two games, there's been nothing, has there? There's been the occasional moment, Darrell Taylor's sack on Sunday, Alton Robinson's sack fumble the week before. Apart from that, it's been awful, rubbish.
Yeah, I think Alton Robinson and Darrell Taylor aren't getting enough playing time, in my opinion, especially on passing downs. It seems like they're not getting on the field enough. And I think these are the guys who are proven to be, that have the pieces to help you get better. So I'd love to see them, get a little more playing time. But I think someone said here, you're like, why are you dropping, Carlos Dunlap into coverage? Like, this is not exactly, that I don't understand what we're doing on defense. You see these guys dropping into coverage, it doesn't make any sense. And it's frustrating all around. And, that's why I said earlier, I've been clamoring for quite some time to go get Geno Atkins. I mean, I know he's 34 or whatever, but the guy can at least play the game and can provide some help on the pass rush on the interior side. And, maybe help some of those outside guys as well. I mean, it's not just
he clearly doesn't fancy it.
I mean, it's frustrating. I mean,
he hasn't signed anywhere, has he?
No, he hasn't signed anywhere. And the thing is, and then maybe, I don't know if it's a money thing or what the case might be. Maybe he's not healthy. I don't know. But there are things they could have done prior to getting to this point.
By the way, have you noticed that they're paying Akella Witherspoon the same amount of money to play for the Steelers as Tampa Bay are paying Richard Sherman to play for them this year?
Yeah, so frustrating.
And what about this one here? It's from Jason. The problem with Taylor and Robinson isn't that they're not good. It's that the coaching staff hasn't given them enough snaps, too much focus on run defense. And I've kind of been feeling, isn't it just about time now, Adam? Are they not desperate enough where it's just a case of just play Robinson and Taylor off the edge? Your run defense has been crap for the last 2 weeks anyway. You might as well just have your two best pass rushers at bookends and let them get after it. Pin your ears back and go and attack Jimmy Garoppolo, who we've seen, when pressured, can make big mistakes.
Well, firstly, you would have to assume that if they did that, it wouldn't get worse. We wouldn't get less pressure on the quarterback than we are currently now. And we wouldn't be giving up more holes in the secondary for passing, because there are no more holes they can possibly give up. Because it's basically, I think Jamie Carragher was talking about Tottenham's midfield, saying he's seen less space on the moon. And I think that's pretty much what you can say for the Seahawks secondary at the moment, unfortunately. But ultimately, to be as reductive and scale it back as much as you want. The secondary, they used to have 3 or 4 amazing players. Now they don't, and the secondary is worse. That defensive line used to have Frank Clark and Jaron Reed, who, to all intents and purposes, probably are the only players that, if you put those into the team now, would be the ones that would command big money. And they're not there, and they've not really replaced them. Aaron Donald is always very, very good against the Seahawks, but it's often Leonard Floyd who ends up with 3 sacks because they're focusing on Aaron Donald. Who's really there on that defensive line that in a 5v4 or with the bare front 5v5, the opposition is spending all week saying, what are we going to do about this guy? The best one in the world. We love Poona Ford. It's a fun story. Rasheem Green's all right, but there's no one there that's giving offensive coordinators fits overnight. And that's the problem. Ultimately, we're just talent deficient in that defense. And eventually that's going to catch up with you. I'm sorry to not be miserable about it, but am I miles off on it?
No, I think this is the way that we need to talk. This is the way more people need to talk. We should be having these conversations a year ago. Not enough people were willing to do it. And it's that kind of complacency around the Seahawks that is causing so many issues now. And answers need to be delivered to some of these questions. And, you're talking about the talent there. You go back to 2018 at the start of the reset, and you actually look at the defense and you think, okay, they haven't got a great deal on that defense, but they've got Bobby Wagner, who just had his best season in Seattle. I think that's fair to say in 2018. You've still got KJ. You end up with Frank Clark getting 13 sacks and Jaron Reed got about 10, wasn't it? And you think, okay, well, that's something there to build on. And you could throw into others, I guess, like Shaq Griffin, who was, still quite young at that point. That was his second year. So you had a few pieces and you think, okay, you've just got to sort of build and structure around that. And now we sit here and sort of those pieces, Wagner's still there, but he's now 31. You've got Jaron Reed's gone. Frank Clark's gone. Frank Clark will get you 13 sacks. Not the most consistent player, but 13 sacks, who drew attention. I can remember the game in London, Adam, and Frank Clark was playing the Raiders. And John Gruden said specifically after the game, he waxed lyrical about the impact of Clark because you have to give him so much attention off the edge. Now, look, people can talk about they shouldn't have paid Clark, or the Kansas City trade hasn't worked for them. He's cost so much and he's not been worth it. I get all that. That's fine. But you trade that kind of player away, and the player that you draft in the first round of the 2019 draft, having traded Frank Clark, is currently inactive, so that Robert Nkemdiche, who sat on his couch last season, can play instead. And Ken Norton Jr. did a press conference yesterday and said that Nkemdiche is just leapfrogged LJ Collier. That's how you get yourselves into trouble. They have not been able to find those guys up front. You have to have a pass rush. That you have to have difference makers up front. You have to. That can win you a game. They won't do it every week unless you're picking in the top 5 and you get a Myles Garrett superstar or an Aaron Donald. But you need players that, maybe more often than not, can just provide that impact and draw attention in a game plan, as you were saying there, Adam. So that when Aaron Donald has a quiet day, Leonard Floyd has 3 sacks. So that you're not constantly having to try and scheme around things. We haven't got this, so we'll do this. We haven't got that, so we can do this. And that's the problem. The Seahawks are not good enough up front. The pass rush wasn't good enough last season. I don't think, what have they really done? They've added Dunlap and he's just not delivering. He's not getting anything. Hyder, there's a reason why he was available as long as he is and why he's as cheap as he is. Mayoa, there's a reason why he's been available for the last 2 years. You swap Jaron Reed for Al Woods, who's playing really well, but it's still Al Woods, isn't it? It's not a good situation. It's a very average defensive line. And while we're talking about the trenches, let's go on to the O-line. I don't know if you guys have seen the PFF grades for the O-line so far. So Dwayne Brown's doing okay, 73.6. Not bad. Not great, but not bad. Damian Lewis shifted to left guard from right guard, where he had so much success with LSU and Seattle as a rookie. Damian Lewis's grade, 53.5. Kyle Fuller, the center, 46.8. Gabe Jackson, great addition. Got a lot of publicity during the offseason for what a fantastic addition that was via trade. 57.6. Brandon Shell, 68.1. He's currently injured. It's not good, is it? It's not good at all.
No, I saw somebody suggest maybe switching Lewis back to right guard and letting Jackson play left guard. And, I don't know really what that would do, but, getting Lewis back to the position he played prior here. And I don't know, the offensive line definitely is not good. And I think it starts with that center position, something we've talked about, all off season as well. That was another position that they just kind of like swept under the rug and, brought Ethan Posick back. And we kept saying, well, hopefully that's not your starter. Like, we saw what he could do. We were ready for someone else. And, Kyle Fuller is he's just not getting the job done. We need someone who's able to shift the scheme, see the protection, change the protection if he needs to, understands what defenses are doing. And it doesn't feel that way. It feels like they're lost.
Adam?
There was so much going on in the offseason with Wilson and draft picks or lack thereof, and Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. I thought it went a bit under the radar that just shifting Lewis from right guard to left guard was given such a, they'll do that because they got Gabe Jackson, who, fine player, pretty good. But Lewis maybe I'm wrong, I thought he was one of the bright spots on the offensive line at right guard last year. Formative years of his career. I can't imagine if you gave him some truth serum and said, do you want to move to left guard? He'd have said yes, under any circumstances. And it felt like quite fuzzy thinking to just say, like, we've got this guy who might be decent, but is 29 years old as a right guard. And, I don't think if he'd gone to the Jets, people would have been thinking, oh my God, we really missed out on Gabe Jackson here. What are they doing? Fire everyone. And just to shift Lewis across, it just felt like a very short-term move for someone that you'd invested fairly high in, started well. I don't know. I feel like the Seahawks spent a lot of time having swing tackles and swing guards, and it's ended up just give a lot of nothing. And it would be really frustrating to lose someone like Lewis's ceiling because you thought, well, we've got someone that might be better this year, so let's shift this guy across. And that's starting to feel like a decision that went under the radar at the time, but maybe something that we'll have to focus on at the end of the season is like, what were they thinking?
I'm completely baffled by it because Gabe Jackson has played left guard, whereas Damien Lewis has played right guard consistently throughout. Gabe Jackson moved to the right side during his career and has had a lot of success there. Not so much recently, it has to be said. His final, let's not forget, the Raiders were going to cut him. The Raiders were going to cut him, and then the Seahawks worked out a trade so they didn't have to cut him, so that the Seahawks could definitely get him, presumably because if they thought they cut him, they'd have to compete with other teams to get him, and they wanted to make sure that they got him. So that's why they did the trade in the first place. He was going to get cut. Now, why wouldn't you say to Gabe Jackson, we've traded for you to play left guard. We want you to switch back there. You are a veteran guy. We want you to trust that. We're very happy with Damien Lewis at right guard. We want you to do that. Instead, they've kind of put Gabe Jackson ahead of Lewis and said, Lewis, you shift over to the left, and then we'll play Jackson the right. You can only do that if the end product is good in any way. So if Gabe Jackson was playing superbly at right guard, then you could say, well, fair enough, and Damien's just got to learn left guard. Gabe Jackson's grading very poorly at right guard, and Damien Lewis is grading very poorly at left guard. So Lewis's grade last year, his final season grade was 70.2. 70.2. Right now, Jackson's is 57.6. And Lewis has gone from 70.2 to 53.5. So there's a regression at right guard. And by moving Lewis, he's regressing too. And what does that mean? Does this mean that if, let's say they cut Gabe Jackson at the end of the season or whatever, because it's not worked out, they want to save money? I don't know. Let's just assume something like that happens. If you then move Lewis back to right guard, is he automatically going to be great again? Is he going to have lost confidence? Is it going to have messed with him? I mean, at the end of last season, I'm thinking Damien Lewis could be one of those rare things. The Seahawks just get a really good offensive lineman and then have him for 10 years. And now I'm starting to worry that they've cocked that up, that essentially he might just be another guy who in 4 years' time is playing for somebody else because he kind of has a so-so career and then moves on. Or that the Seahawks get him back like a Posick type thing and he just kind of is there. Why have they moved him? It makes absolutely no sense, and the results don't add up.
Yeah, and the other thing that you kind of said that just hit me is like if he does lose that confidence thing and they just try to shift him back to right guard, I mean, it kind of reminds me of that Justin Britt scenario where he went from right tackle to right guard to center before he finally found a home at center. But there's been so many times that we've taken these players and put them out of position to try to make them fit what we think they're supposed to do, and it's just not working. We were so excited about Damien Lewis because he was a pure guard. Right. He wasn't those guys that came over and, he's going to play tackle or guard or whatever. But they did even last year, if you remember, they switched him to center at one point. So he played center for a game because we had no other options at center. So I'm like frustrated that they just can't keep him in one position and they have to keep moving people around. And I still think it has a lot to do with that center position as well. I think that goes, it's vastly underrated because I think they have a lot of things that need to, to shift and keep their eye on and it's not just snapping the ball. So I really feel like that the Kyle Fuller situation is not panning out as well. And I don't know, I can't even remember the guy's name that they brought in, but maybe he might be better. Time to get somebody else on the field. What was it? 46? Was he Rob? What was it? Center 46?
46.8. Let me just also let's just mention that the Rams, all of their offensive linemen are grading in the 70s. Just a quick note on that. If you're wondering why they're unbeaten and just beat the Super Bowl champions. I did notice this comment had come in by Hawks, or I don't even know what that username is. Rob Staton is an idiot. And I wanted to highlight this one because, you see, this is what you get. You get these idiots who, what they decide is they don't have any counter arguments to any of this stuff. They don't have anything interesting to say in response. He clearly doesn't like the fact that we're criticizing or that I'm criticizing the Seahawks, and he's taken that personally. And he thinks that the best thing to do is to use an insult rather than as an excuse for not having a coherent argument. That essentially, if he just smears the person, then everything will be okay. If he just undermines the person who's making the argument, rather than actually, combating those arguments that he's making, then he will win. Well, you won't win. You just look like a total loser. You just look like a silly fan who has got no arguments, who just can't hear anything bad about his favorite team. If you have something interesting to say in counter to some of these points that we're making, if you actually think that Damian Lewis and Gabe Jackson grading at 53.5 and 57.6 is hunky-dory and that everything's fine, or that second half against Minnesota was fine and dandy, then let's hear it. Otherwise, shut up. Right, let's move on. I don't know if you guys have seen Jamal Adams's quotes today. This is the Jamal Adams section of the live stream. Jamal Adams has said in his press conference that opponents are sliding their protections to him. They're always looking for me on his blitzes, he says. He then went on to say, that's not an excuse. I just wanted to play something for you, fellas. I wanted you to see this little clip that I've put together, and just if I've really tried to find where the opponent, in this case the Minnesota Vikings, had slid their protection to make this happen, but maybe you can spot it when I play the video for you. Check this out. So there we go. 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, $17.5 million, safety. That's what you get for your money these days. What do you think of that?
Well, Bobby Wagner in his press conference yesterday said that we need to get out of each other's way on defense. And I think in Jamal Adams' case, I think he meant literally, because didn't Adams fly straight into Wagner on a blitz on Sunday when he completely messed up the gap he was trying to go into? But it's interesting because there's a couple of prominent tape study guys on social media that I won't go too much further than that, so as not to call people out individually. But the discussion today was that Jamal Adams was outstanding on Sunday in the role that he was supposed to do. And these people definitely know more than me. So in a way, I have to defer to that. But ultimately, if that is what's outstanding for what the role is required, then the value on that pick and his contract is just not worth it. Because anyway, the value isn't worth it. But if he was getting 15 sacks a year, you might try and think, well, maybe it is. But if it's just a case of not giving up big seam routes, but then there's massive holes in other areas of the secondary, like, what are we doing here? It feels like people are falling over themselves to try and justify something that to the layman doesn't appear to have any credence at all.
Robbie, when I see that play, I just think Jamal Adams looks like a clown. And when I listen to his press conference and he stands up there and he's giving it this, and I'm going to do this, and this defense is going to change. I'm saying, mate, have a look at yourself. Just honestly. I mean, I'm going to come on to something else in a second, but firstly, your thoughts on. We all saw it live, but when you actually see it from that angle, it just goes to show what a ridiculous whiff that is on that tackle. He's missed out more than 10% of his tackles so far this year, by the way, officially.
Yeah, I mean, it's tackling 101, right? Keep your head up and wrap up. I mean, you quit putting your head down, lowering your shoulder, trying to get a big hit. That's just terrible. I mean, gave the guy an extra 4 or 5 yards. You don't see stuff like that. I mean, this is why people want to hammer Sherman about, he's old or whatever. Sherman was a hell of a tackler. He was really good at it. And this is something that he could help improve our team. That's why you should have went out and got him. And I've seen Trey Flowers try to make those kind of, everyone's going for that big hit now and try to make it look like they're, beasts. And instead you just look like you're an idiot for missing. So yeah, I don't really like seeing that. I don't like the fact that we gave him 2 first-round picks, a third player, and we paid him the amount of money to see him do something like that. Like, if he wants to make a big hit, make a big hit and make a play, but don't whiff.
Well, here's an idea, Jamal. Actually, you've got these 2 things. They're called arms. You can use them, to tackle when you're actually going out there. You don't just go head first, close your eyes and throw yourself at the sideline. That's maybe an idea. These hands, they're also good for catching as well, if you want to do that. and shedding blocks. So you don't just run into a lineman and then go, oh, that's the end of that. You can actually disengage or try to, seeing as you're such a great weapon and playmaker. But did you guys see the nickname that I gave Jamal Adams this week? I called him a peacock. I said that he's a peacock because if anybody has ever come across a peacock, they love to show off. They let you know that they're there all the time, but they don't really have that much value, do they? Peacocks, they don't really. You'll never have a peacock for any reason, would you? You go to in this country, Robbie, you won't know this, but if you go to like some old stately home and you're just sort of walking around the gardens, occasionally you might see a peacock. That's pretty much the only place that you see peacocks other than a farm. And Jamal Adams reminds me of a peacock, so I just happened to throw this together. And when you put them together like that, you can actually see the similarity. I made a point in the same article that I referred to him as a peacock, that, the reason why I think he's a peacock is because he turned up to the press conference after the Titans game with his $2,200 Louis Vuitton coffee cup for no other reason but to plonk it down on the podium so that everyone could see that he had a $2,200 coffee cup. And that's why I said he was a show-off. And then there was a user in the comment section of the article who goes under the name of Gross Matost, which, if people aren't aware, was what John Clayton called Yeeta Gross Matos on 710. He called him Yeeta Gross Matost. So that's where that name comes from, if you're wondering. But this is what Gross Matost said in the comment. He said, Jamal Adams is the $2,200 coffee cup. Incredibly expensive, not really doing anything that couldn't be done for a fraction of the price, pretentious, and completely unnecessary for the task. And I just replied, I so wish I'd thought of that for the article. Am I going too far?
Look, I suppose in fandom, we're supposed to want our team to win and big them up and do well. But I think it's probably certainly on our side of the Atlantic, Rob. I think this is how we approach players, certainly like that with Adams's bravado. If it doesn't work, then you're going to get rinsed for it, unfortunately. And I think I'm all for it. I think if we can't be good, at least be funny. And I think certainly that's certainly a great way to look at it. Look, hopefully he can turn it around. I think I said on the show on Sunday that to pay him and neuter him from what he was doing last year just seems like the worst of all worlds. I don't know. Can he turn it around? I'm sure he can. Can he prove himself to be a top 5 safety? Everyone seems to suggest that he can. That's, again, more intelligent than me. So I just want to see it. But I wonder if he's the kind of player that is, the cherry on the cake. And I'm not convinced that he's necessarily the guy that can turn around an ailing defense. He didn't in New York. So I'm not really sure what there is to say that he's going to do it here. It might be that if you put him on the Rams next to Ramsey with Donald in front of him, he looks like an absolute superstar. But right now, we need someone to, lift the rest of them up. And I wonder if he's maybe not that guy to do that for us. So sort of unfortunate position. But the team chose to put him in that position. And so it's more on the team for me than it ever be on the individual, I think.
Yeah, and Robbie, before you jump in, Robbie, I will explain that, we do like some gallows humour over here in the UK. And generally our comedy tries to punch up. And I can't think of any, in the context of the Seahawks, punching up at a guy who's earning $17.5 million and cost 2 first-round picks and a third is I think that is fair game for a smidgen of humour. So I don't know whether the Americans quite get the British sense of humour, but I hope that you do.
Yeah. So to to go back to your original question, are you going too far? I don't know if you're going too far. I mean, it is funny, and I think it's just I was down at the peacock thing. So I mean, it's a good analogy. I think it's more just disappointment in Adams. Like they paid this huge amount of draft capital to get him. You paid him a big certain money. You want him to be this game changer kind of player. Like Aaron Donald's a game changer, right? Like he's going to change the game. You gave up so much capital for this guy. You want him to do it, and when it's not happening, it's easy to kind of, as a fan, they turn your back on it and be like, this is terrible. You want to see more production out of it. And, you start to worry about that one thing. Someone said something here. I don't know where it's at about the pay, like that's about Sean Alexander. It was Big Mike said something about he had that Sean Alexander, thing where he got big paid and now he doesn't want to take a hit or get hit or whatever. I mean, you have to start worrying about that, right? You saw right there in that clip right there, not being able to tackle and just totally whiffing. You got to worry about that kind of scenario of, well, hey, is he worried about getting hurt? Does he try not to play? He got his money now. Does he not want to play as hard? I don't know. And we said at the beginning of the season, we want a Jamal Adams on our team, a good player. But right now he's not making the plays exactly. So it's frustrating. I think it's easy for us to kind of snark on that a little bit.
Yeah, and we're just having a bit of fun, You can take things too seriously sometimes, and I think when you're 1 and 2 and potentially 1 and 4, you've kind of got to have a bit of fun, haven't you? I mentioned we were going to come back to you for a prediction, and why not shoot for it now? How do you see this game going on Sunday?
I think if the Seahawks defend like they did against the Vikings, I mean, you could argue that Kirk Cousins. There'll be someone that argues that Kirk Cousins is a top 10 quarterback, and they'll come with all the stats. And you might leave the argument thinking, do you know what? You might be right. And with Jefferson and Thielen, you could say, I kind of get why you wouldn't want to give up the deep ball because Cousins can probably throw it on play action. Jimmy Garoppolo is not that quarterback. And the only thing I ask of this Seahawks defense is don't play scared of someone like Jimmy Garoppolo. If he's going to beat us over the top, fine. We'll go home. We got on the plane. We lost fair and square. If we get dinked and dunked on and you try and risk that with Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Kittle, 3 players are probably more suited to play that style than even Jefferson and Thielen were. That'll be pretty unforgivable for me. I think the Seahawks will lose 33-26, I think is what I had.
It's very specific.
Yeah, I don't know why I've come up with those numbers. I've never got one right, so I don't even know why I keep giving a score. But that's probably what I go with, because I feel like the Seattle can score points if they can somehow, keep the San Fran defensive front off them enough to test their cornerbacks, which also is not a huge position of strength. I think we can score points, but I just wonder that we're just going to get defensively outmatched. And with Shanahan, Shanahan's almost a 12th player out there, and I just feel that it's going to be too many guys to cover. And we're just going to come up short, unfortunately.
I think it's an interesting point that you raise about the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is more, and the Shanahan system for that matter, is more designed to capitalize on those underneath stuff. And I would think Jimmy Garoppolo is not a great deep ball thrower, is he? Maybe he will be on Sunday, but just test him, make him throw that deep ball. And even though your Samuels and your Ayuks and even your Kittles, they're better in that mid range. Make them get downfield and beat you over the top. Play a little bit closer. Jam, let's have some physicality in this game. It's a divisional opponent. We shouldn't be going to play the Niners scared. It would be great to see a bit more physicality. And I think if they do that, I think it'll be a close game. I think it's going to be a close game, this one. But I think the Seahawks will probably lose. But, no one will be happier than me to see the Seahawks beat the Niners. And we can all enjoy that. I really hope that we're here on Sunday and we can talk about the negativity with the team and all the issues that we have. We can have a bit of fun at the expense of Jamal Adams and all of that. We're all desperate to see a win this Sunday. I'm sure, but no one wants to see a loss so that we can all turn around and go, oh, well, look, we've been proven right again, or anything like that, or let's fire everybody because of this. Go and win the game.
Yeah, I would love to eat crow. Come back after the game and just totally eat crow on my prediction as well, And first of all, thanks Darth Soldier for the super chat. Don't know if Rob see that.
Yeah, I'm gonna come to that in a second. There's two questions I want to end on, and we'll definitely come to that.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to, eat crow on the whole thing and see us come out and put a performance together that, makes us feel like we have some confidence in the team going forward. But right now it's hard to see with the way they've been playing.
Let's get to the super chat then. Darth Soldier, thank you so much for that generous super chat there. I didn't even ask for super chats tonight. I completely forgot. And you've still come up trump. So if anyone wants to chuck one in right at the end and join Darth, then please feel free. But Darth, thank you. The problem is that Pete's mind is still in 2013 when we had the talent in our secondary to allow the corners to hand back 5+ yards and still make a play. We don't have that talent anymore. I think that is certainly true. I also think that it's a combination of that and the fact that a lot of people underestimated Bennett and Averill and the quality that they had. And when they had Clemens with them and Irvin initially, and then Frank Clark caught the latter end of the Bennett and Averill era. I think having those two and then the third wheel as well, totally underrated. They always needed that interior presence just to finish it off. I don't think they ever quite had that great interior rusher, did they? But those guys were so good on the outside, especially Averill's ability, just the speed that he had, Bennett's all-round ability to rush with his size, a perfect double act there. So, a very, very much missed duo.
Just to jump on that, Rob.
Yeah, go for it.
I think it's such a good point you make. And I feel like Carroll gets so entrenched in the idea that the scheme and the system is what it does. I mean, I had one moment of Seahawk relevance ever in my life, and we got to interview Doug Baldwin a couple of months ago. And I said to him about that 2013 team, like, do you ever feel disrespected that so much weight is given to the scheme and you were scrappy underdogs? Whereas, like, you guys had incredible players. There are probably 10 or 12 players on that team that were in the top 5 of their position in the league. And I think too often, people say, oh, this can be just like 2013. That was such a unique team. And the quality that they had there, there were loads of narratives and stories about unproven players, 5th-round picks, undrafted free agents. They were stacked with some of the best players the NFL will ever see. Certainly, this decade will ever see. And it does start to grate on me when people say, we just add 3 defensive linemen. Oh, it's like 2013. It's nothing like that because they had ridiculous quality. And I don't know, it does feel like that gets lost quite a lot in the discourse about this team. And also pretty much any subsequent team that, like, that's the natural barometer of 2013. But we're miles off that.
PD Way, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Says, can I suggest a potential palate cleanser of bright spots so far? Bright spots so far. I'm struggling, guys. I am struggling for it. Have you got a palate cleanser for PD?
Well, I'll say this week we should be getting D. Eskridge back, so that's should be nice. Hopefully, he'll be able to show some of the potential that he showed.
But you're also reminding that he's been injured, Robbie, by pointing out that he's coming back.
Come on, I'm trying to go. At least I came up with something.
That is true. That is true.
And getting him back, hopefully that'll help the offense a little bit, and get to see kind of the talent that he has.
I've thought of one.
Okay.
If they have a bad season, at least they get a high draft. Oh no, they don't, do they? Oops, that's Jamal Adams. Sorry.
Actually, PD Wade just came up with another one that's really actually good. He said,
Taylor looks like he has got a good one. Darrell Taylor has looked sharp. I'd like to see him. Maybe he's not in a position yet to get loads and loads and loads of snaps. But I would like to see more of him and Alton Robinson. Because like they were talking earlier, why the hell not? Let's see a bit more of them. Let's see if they can be a solution to part of this problem.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I feel like Quandre Diggs has played quite well. Obviously the secondary is so maligned at the moment, but I don't feel like there's ever something that I'm looking at thinking, he's been the problem. Properly, slim pickings here. But people talking about Tyler Lockett in the comments, obviously, A, he's played really well, but B, him not being carted off with an ACL on Sunday might be the thing that keeps the season on track because, at 30-17 down, we're all in the mire as it was, and seeing him down with the whole team on a knee outside him. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but for me, that was like, well, this season could be over right here because he's probably the guy that gets the offense ticking more than anyone else outside of the quarterback, obviously.
I think that's a great shout. I mean, when he went down, I had kind of just assumed, but then I had with Jordan Brooks as well when he got carted off that was it. And I thought, not only is this going to be a bad loss, they've lost key players. So yeah, I mean that is a positive that he's still healthy, and the way that he's playing has been positive. Kerry said Alex Collins has had a couple of nice runs. He has. I don't know why they don't. But then the offense collapses in the second half. So like Carson had a great first half. Didn't have like 80 yards. You're thinking he's going to have a career day in like no time at all. And then he finished with 80 yards. And you're like, well, what happened there? And you have like 2 runs in the second half. And Collins is playing well. You think, let's see a bit more of these guys. Kerry says Sidney Jones has not been burned so far, which is a positive. That is true. That is true. The Chiefs are 1-2. I guess that's a positive. But, you know, I kind of think if I'm a Chiefs fan right now, I don't know, they've been to the last two Super Bowls. I'm probably a little bit more optimistic than the Seahawks right now. But I don't know. I mean, they to me seem like they've lost. They just lost to a good Chargers team, didn't they? They that was like a back and forth type game. And the Ravens won. Again, they go to the Ravens and it's back and forth. If the Seahawks had gone to the Ravens and just lost, and if they'd gone and played the Chargers as close as that, I don't think we'd be having the conversations we're having now, rather than blowing a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter against the Titans and getting absolutely hammered by the Vikings in the second half. Can you think of any other positives? I'm trying to get the grades for the team so that we can sort of see who's played well. I've got it here. All players. Actually, you can't do all players, so I won't bother. But I don't know. Have we exhausted the positives? Have we exhausted the palate cleansing?
Wilson's been clean, I suppose, in terms of, you know, he's not thrown any back-breaking interceptions yet. I mean, I guess that's what you should expect from a $35 million quarterback. But I feel like when he's been given the opportunity to play well, he's done okay. I mean, PD Way has followed it up with saying you have a verdict yet on Waldron or too soon. And I don't know if this metaphor or analogy will make sense, but it's kind of, Waldron to me kind of strikes me as like the kid who's playing on his dad's iPad for the first 15 minutes of the game. And, you know, he gets loads of good stuff done. Then the dad grabs the iPad and says, pushes his glasses down to the bottom of his nose and say, all right, what's this kid been up to? Let me get back to what I know. Because it sort of seemed like we've had a new Waldron-y style offense for the first 20 minutes of each game. And then after that, it sort of regressed back into the stodgy mire that we've all bemoaned for the last few years that have been incredibly frustrating. To me, as much as I'd love to see Shane Waldron do what he wants to do, it very much strikes me as Pete Carroll's offense still, and as another guy that's sort of allowed to pull the strings when Pete turns his head around to check what's going on elsewhere.
Just to finish on this, because I think this is something that we kind of bypass. These are 2 really important games, aren't they? These are perhaps the 2 most important. I can't remember 2 more important games since perhaps you could even go back as that 2014 season in the playoffs. Because if it gets to 1-4, this could implode, couldn't it? I mean, this could really, really implode. You wonder then what happens with the Wilson camp. Does Mark Rodgers, you know, come out from his cave and start talking to the media again? Do we have more backlash towards, you know, you're seeing corners saying the scheme's not helping me right now, or I don't really know what I'm doing. Do you see a bit more of that? You know, the fans are going to turn even more, aren't they, on Carroll and Norton Jr. if they get to 1-4. You know, what will prevent all of that? Is it just one win? Is it, you know, can they afford to lose on Sunday and beat the Rams and be 2-3 and people still be with them somewhat? I mean, what needs to happen to avoid this all going to hell in a handcart, do you think?
Winning is the only solution. There is nothing else that could do it. I mean, people tend to, you know, when you win, you're much happier and they can write everything off, right? It doesn't matter how you win, as long as you won, right? You could look ugly, win. You know, I remember it was the first game of the season when we were playing the Panthers, and it was like just an ugly game. Like offense couldn't get anything going, and it was the final drive, and Russ hit Jermaine Kearse in the corner for like a touchdown that made the game. It was like 14-9 or something, just stupid. It was like or maybe it was like 9-7. It was a really bad game, and it was like maybe the only touchdown. And everyone was like, it didn't matter, we won, and it kind of cured all that, the rest of whatever happened in the game. So I think winning will be the only thing. Other than that, I can't think of anything else.
I feel like the Niners game with the way in which the next two happen, with a short week with the Rams, I feel like the Niners is almost a free hit. We'll do our shows and we'll have our recaps, but we'll be thinking about the Rams so quickly after that Niners game is finished that if we beat the Niners and get waxed by the Rams, people are going to end up being, week 5 watching Red Zone thinking we're terrible. But if it's the other way around and we get smashed by the Niners, we beat the Rams, we'll probably go into that week thinking, all right, week 6, can we get to 3-3? So the Niners game for me is almost like an hors d'oeuvre to the Rams game on Thursday night, which for me is going to be season defining, I would say. Because at 1-3, it becomes, DEFCON 1 level if you lose that. But if it's 2-2 and you feel like you might be in with a chance, but then you get beaten by them again and McVay hands it to you again, I feel like that people are going to be pissed.
Great use of the word hors d'oeuvre there, Adam. Leaning on your profession there to come up with a great word to help describe this game. Listen, guys, I've kept you long enough. It's been an hour and 5, and thank you to everybody who's been watching along. Again, look, we don't set out to be negative on purpose, but we just want to talk about real topics that are important topics, and not sugarcoat things for the sake of sugarcoating it so everyone can feel happy about the team. There are some serious topics that need to be discussed, and there should have been some serious questions asked this week, regardless of what the answers were, and I don't think they were. So we'll come in here and we'll talk about those topics and we'll have those conversations. Look, thank you to everybody who's joined in. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you to everybody who's given a super chat in the past. Don't forget to like the video. It does help. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video. Adam, you mentioned you've done a recording today. When can people find that on the Pedestrian Podcast?
Thank you. You should be able to find us if you check Pedestrian Podcast at Podbean, or just go to the UK Seahawkers Twitter account or my account or Stu's, which I'm sure you'll find through Rob's. You'll find that on there tomorrow.
Fantastic. Go and check that out. It's a brilliant podcast with the fellas there. We'll be back for instant reaction after the game on Sunday. We'll see you then. Join us for that. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week.